Hi everybody, Dimitri's here. So here we got one of our 12 light rigs, and we kept getting those questions and stuff about like show how to do things and how you set everything up and so on and so forth. So I thought just to try to make a set of nicer videos where we go through all this stuff from beginning to the end when we get all the assets, and sort of maybe that's easier for people to follow through. So in this particular case, we already have pre-set up, pre-assembled the rig. Usually when we ship it, it's broken into several sections. Also, I'm recording on an iPhone right now, and I'm pretty sure I won't be able, I'll try, but I won't be able to do the whole thing with an iPhone. So I got a separate camera that kind of captures all the important stuff there. Anyway, this stuff, we usually ship it partially pre-assembled. So all the lights, the way they're placed, as you can see, there are 12 lights that go all around, and there are 4 in the middle, and they're all misaligned. And all that is done for a reason, because in our software, it works best when you have pseudo-random data. So for those folks that are familiar with rendering and anti-aliasing, you might know like low discrepancy sequences and MSAA, like multi-sample anti-aliasing patterns. So we have things that ideally they should be as less symmetrical and misaligned as possible to get best results. So we would ship it with multiple sections. They're already preset, so it's there's only one way to assemble it. So that way you don't need to do all these measurements and placement, and the software that we ship with, everything is pretty much like 95% pre-calibrated, so you could start using it right away. You still, so it would basically, lights would be separate, no cables, so you just put the lights on, put filters on, get everything connected, and attach 2 sync boxes. Each one of them can handle up to 8 lights, so we utilize, it's all designed like a basically Lego system where we can assemble different kinds of photometric rigs using the exact same components. In this case, they're daisy chained, so the one we call A above and B below or bottom, and it's also possible to connect extra lights if, let's say, for some cases you want to put some lights like from behind to capture translucency and some extra stuff. So there are extra ports, they're available, so you attach that. We also in documentation have a special, like all the instructions on how to connect everything. There is a, even though in the software there's no specific, like it doesn't really care in like what order they fire, but in this specific case, so that everything is the same, we just fire 7 from that one, 3 o'clock, going counterclockwise, and then spiral into the inner circle. So they always go like that and like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then the closest one there, and finish the loop. And we do it twice, one with one polarization and the second one with a different polarization. So in terms of camera mount, so all that is connected, you can try it all out. In this case, I also attached a, that's an Android smartphone. Let's fire the app. So everything gets connected to these boxes, and we can turn some lights on there. That's extra. So we got that going, and again, it's all wireless control, and all the lights and everything is powered just with a single at least 120 watt 12 volt power supply, because all the lights are fired one at a time, so we don't need any individual controls or have all the lights at the same time, even though when we can fire them, all of them at the same time, but the final output is always 100 watt. We can do like different wattage, but it's like once you put the camera and you set up your exposure, it's easy to use because it's always the same. So the whole rig here, you can see it's you can either use a tripod. We use this very handy light stand, so you can basically, it's on wheels, you can freely move it around, you can lock these wheels, this whole thing goes up and down, you can rotate it. On top of that, we put this video head that's super handy, that also allows to rotate around that axis, and you can also tilt the whole rig up and down. And that's also pretty useful when we scan 2D surfaces. Then we can take this whole thing and basically make it flat, and we'll have a tutorial on that as well, basically how we scan 2D surfaces, and that's pretty handy as well. So in terms of camera mount, by default we ship with these kind of standard plates, and again, like with different cameras, depending on what camera you use. In this case, you can see that you can unscrew this top plate and install any other mount of your choice or whatever you like. In this case, I already installed, it's a small rig, around $30, quick release thing. So when we already attach it to a camera, so you have easy access to the battery, even though actually in the field we would use a battery, but if you're in a studio environment, we do recommend to get a power supply and don't rely on a battery, because what happens with batteries, when they drop below a certain level, they begin to throttle, and you can start getting missed frames and stuff like that. It's not fun. So with boxes, as I said, there are daisy chains. There's the primary one that's on top, there's a secondary one at the bottom. So basically, when you have the camera, it will go, the turntable will go right in there. Then this box will trigger the other one, and you can keep adding stuff. For this set of tutorials, we will be using this Genie Mini SIRP Genie Mini 2 turntable. Again, it could be wirelessly controlled, but for the purpose of these tutorials, we'll just assume that we cannot control it directly, even though we can the specific one, but the whole system is compatible with any kind of turntable. So we'll just connect it directly with a wire, 3.5 millimeter jack into our box, and then from the box have a wire directly to the camera. Again, even though we can trigger everything over Bluetooth, but there is always lag and delay and reliability issues when it comes to that. So we covered that power supply. Again, we could easily use power banks. People also ask that quite often. This is, I don't know, it says somewhere what the capacity is, but this specific power bank is good for about 10 scans or 10-15 prop scans, the way we usually do it. Again, as I said, camera is connected. Depending on your camera, you might need a special cable. For the turntable, we'll have a cable for that. Lights, in terms of light setup, as you can see here, we have custom light sources. We do rely on continuous light sources because for photometric stuff, we need to take thousands and thousands of pictures, and mechanical shutters usually break at around 100,000 plus ish. So, and flash strobes don't work with electronic shutters, because majority of electronic shutters are well, you get rolling shutter effect, so you cannot use mechanical shutter. There are global shutter, electronic shutter cameras, but they're usually at the moment low resolution, like 24 megapixel max, and they're good for videos, but that's it. So we have like these lights, and with CPL filters on top that you can turn, and we'll get into how you calibrate everything. And they could be, like all these lights could be actuated along all axes. So in this case, the whole rig from one light from one side to the other is about 80 centimeters, so let's say a meter. And with this configuration, from the practice in terms of reconstruction, we can easily scan something that's close to like 10-20 centimeters up to meter. So this is around 55 centimeters, but we can go all the way to meter and a half with this setup. If you want something larger, well, then you would have to extend all these things. Again, like most of these parts, it's all standard 15 millimeter type of stuff for rigs. And in that case, it would be something custom. So, okay, we'll put a camera there. What else? What else I wanted to mention? Yeah, in terms of background, you see there is a black backdrop. Usually it's this large. You don't need this large. This is mostly for the video when I'll be shooting on this camera, so that like everything looks nicely. But ideally, like, or not ideally, but in general, when you scan all this photometric stuff, one difference between regular photogrammetry is that you want to make sure that all these lights have good access to the object. So you cannot have like a large, like a table there that will occlude all that stuff. So that's why we also try to make sure that everything around is black, doesn't have colors that would bounce off and create problems later in your textures that you would have to spend time cleaning up. So kind of try to think up front, though usually you do it a few times, you see the problems, and then the next time you try not to do it. And other things, for instance, and we'll get to that, when scanning objects like this, you see it, if I put it like this, the problem will be is that when we build geometry, and it doesn't matter whether it's photogrammetry or structural light, it will be super hard to get that separation. Like even if we would use some automatic stuff, it would be pretty hard to do. So you always kind of need to think like how to make your life easier later on, so that you can automate as much as possible. So in this case, I'm placing like something like that to make sure that the object has some clearance. Because in that case, when you build geometry, it would be super easy to separate it like a few clicks and you're done, as opposed to like spending, I don't know, 5-10 minutes cleaning all that stuff up, even when it's automated to an extent. So got that. Another thing that's a bit specific to this rig is oh yeah, like with lights, I said that you would have to also, once you figure out like where most of your stuff is going to be, it's okay to basically go and move them around. If you just turn them, most of the time you don't need to do any extra recalibration, but you initially you need to make sure that they point at where the object is, so you could easily turn them around. And yeah, and for that, like when you do that stuff, you don't need to go and, come on. You see, like it's hard, it's hard to film and do something with just one hand. Anyway, we'll attach that later. So the last thing that I wanted to mention is when you do normal photogrammetry, usually it's enough you do a shot, and if something happens to move, again with a handheld camera it's hard to see, but if I go and kind of do this, it will wobble. It will wobble a bit. So when you're doing photogrammetry and flash strobes, there is just flash, you have frozen image, and that motion might not be a problem. But in this case, when we'll shoot all those lights, we want all those pixels to be like exact, no motion at all. So that's why with a rig like this, and later you would see, because I tried it already, if I go and like do something like this, it will move and wobble a bit. So for that, you would normally put sandbags, bricks, whatever, even like put like a bag of bricks or just sand on it to make sure that it's as rigid as possible. But even in those cases, let's say when we scan something with like macro super small things, like 100mm macro lens, even tiny, like you would have a car outdoors driving and everything would shake. So here, let me show you. I have another setup that's one of our older rigs. It's mostly set up and we just move, like turn objects around. But here you see that, and it also has a structural light projector in here. We won't be using that, but you can see here that there is a special bar that presses against the wall, and that is exactly to make sure that the whole thing is kind of rigid with the whole building. Otherwise, like macro stuff, you zoom in that much and you will have like 5 to 10 pixel shifts between shots, and that's not acceptable. So it has to be like rock solid. Let's see. I think, I think for now we covered pretty much everything that I wanted to mention in this kind of regional overview of the whole thing. So now I'm going to set up this camera, make sure everything looks good there, so you could see like the rest of the setup. I'll probably try to use the iPhone as well, but I'm not sure how easy. Probably we'll see. If I'll try to do iPhone anyway. So we'll see you in the next video.